We should strive to let them know that, hey, you're needed. Hey, we love you. Hey, we care for you. And that's not something that's part of the culture. So I would
Yeah.
say, to answer that question, I would say instead of us trying to find signs of them going through mental struggle, give them an avenue, give them a space, let them know that they're loved. And, let them also know that it's okay if you're having struggles to come over this side and have a conversation.
Like, subscribe, and share to Voices of Linden TV.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Voices of Linden TV. And joining us here tonight is, out of Toronto, is Robert Nicholas, an entrepreneur and former classmate of mine. And this evening, we're going to be discussing men's mental health and well-being and what we can do to bring more awareness to this crisis. So welcome to our show again, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, most welcome. So let's dive and get deeper directly into this crisis. So what does mental health mean to you?
Mental health to me is everything, because for me, everything starts from the inside. So it is the first point, it's the starting point, it's the genesis of your entire being. So it is of the utmost importance to me.
Hmm. So what do you do is this something that you and your friends actually discuss?
Uh, uh, Not really, not from the space of because it can be discussed, but in our culture, as you know, when you think of mental health, it's always from the negative.
Hmm.
So going into a situation like that is like, we need to work on our mental health. It's more like, is something wrong with you? So fortunately or unfortunately, for the most part, this has been a kind of personal journey that I wasn't really able to share with my brothers because of the fact of the taboo that surrounds mental health in our culture.
What are some of these taboos?
Mental health, when you think, I mean, even teasing, and somebody says that person is mental, think about it. That means they're crazy. You know what I mean? So when you think of mental health in our culture, it's only two things. Either you're ordinary or you're crazy. So there's
So
there's no
drastic.
middle there. Yeah, there's no middle there.
Yeah.
There's no avenue for improving your mental health and stuff like that. That's not one of the areas in our culture. I mean, like, even if you look at our parents' generation, my dad don't want to go to the hospital or never wanted to go to the hospital. Like, they think, that's death. They don't get sick. They don't go to hospital. Anything to do with hospital. Anything to do with the word health, you know,
Right.
you couldn't examine my father's colon for thy kingdom come. You know what I mean? And now we see that these things are necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm just hoping that as we evolve and as we learn and as we grow, these things will become normal talking points. Even after our conversations, these things become normal in our culture.
Well, I think that we definitely need to have more of the conversation about it because even though we think it's getting better, the statistics are showing that it's not. One in ten men face depression and anxiety, and it's social conditions. Everything plays a part in it. So, how, as a man, do you recognize it? Because we think it's going to get better, and it's not. Our men are suffering. Our men are not able to show how they're truly feeling. They're struggling. They're not sharing their day to days. The moments that they really don't even know how they're going to go to the next moment. So, what do we do to recognize the signs that you need help?
Okay. Uh, Father's Day is coming up, as you know. And what I've noticed is a lot of my brothers have resorted to memes and jokes, right? So, for example, Father's Day is coming, expect a handkerchief, expect a pair of socks. The reason why I'm giving you this example is because when I look at those things, I see them as coping mechanism. I see it as them lowering the bar so that they will not be disappointed on Father's Day because they know more than likely they won't get anything,
Right.
right? So I'm saying all that to say that one of the things we have to look at is how do we engage with the men of society? Do we treat them as if they're worthy of respect? Do we treat them with respect? Do we treat them with love? Do we treat them with kindness? And the truth of the matter is we don't. So I think it's not about looking at the signs as to see, if he's walking crooked or if he's crying or if he's not eating or whatever. I think as a society, we should just start to move in the direction of recognizing that men are important, that men are needed, that men are necessary. And we should just strive to do that every day. We should strive to let them know that, hey, you're needed. Hey, we love you. Hey, we care for you. And that's not something that's part of the culture. So I would say, to answer that question, I would say instead of us trying to find signs of them going through mental struggle, give them an avenue, give them a space, let them know that they're loved. And, let them also know that it's okay if you're having struggles to come over this side and have a conversation. But that, again, that doesn't exist in our culture.
Well, I think what the statistics are showing is that men aren't even aware that until they're quite deep into it. So I think understanding that as much as there's coping mechanism and there's cultural stigmas that go to it or not wanting to go to the hospital, the pandemic is becoming worse and worse and worse. And it's important that you kind of become aware of it. On the other hand, too, that even when there's positive things going on in someone's life, especially if you find it more so with men, they still have issues with that. Like, for example, a new job, getting married, getting engaged, having a baby. Men are having a hard time dealing with these changes. I mean, I think men are taught that they're supposed to remain calm, confident, just secure and every other thing, but they have feelings too. And we have to start recognizing that more and more. And some of the symptoms that I think for women out there who are, having men that they love and care about and really want to secure and be there for them and truly be there for them, meaningly creating a safe place, is just recognizing when they're isolating themselves and when they're becoming violent or just playing more video games or starting to use substances. I mean, that's just a few, but those are the things I think we have to keep an eye on. Robert, why do you think that men aren't very supportive when other men are starting to work on themselves?
Particularly in our culture, I think we don't like changes. You see, one of the negative things that comes up when any individual is trying to change, his circle no longer have an excuse, or her circle no longer have an excuse on both sides of the fence. It's not just a man thing, but because, okay, for example, if I now start to read one book every day, the man standing next to me, that we're doing the same job, involved in the same activities, have the 2 kids, have a wife, whatever, he no longer have an excuse as to why he's not reading a book. So in a weird way, I find that those things kind of bring a resentment, because your actions kind of call somebody else's action into question. And as people, I don't think we appreciate that. So, I have to go to this party, but then somebody's saying, oh, that's not important. Do we really have to go? So nobody really wants people around them who could necessarily make them have to question whatever it is that they're doing. Like this, make them have to make adjustments. People don't like that. So you find that when you embark on these journeys of change, because, it might be a little more tedious for another person to have that discipline, they prefer to just put you one side and continue to do whatever it is that they were doing.
Right. Yes. Because to recognize it is hard enough. To recognize it and also have to counter everything else is another story. And then it turns out that they're trying to defend it. And that's not easy in itself. What you're doing in order to even recognize it is, a term, mental wealth. As human beings, we tend to always think of what we're lacking, what we can do good enough at, or what we're not good enough at. But when you have mental wealth, when you're actually proactively taking the time out to make sure that you're spending 10, 15 minutes on formulating what it is you want and being aware and accepting of yourself for where you at in life right now and what it is you're wanting to achieve, then you're becoming more proactive. at protecting yourself and taking care of yourself for the betterment of your own future. You're cultivating resilience and you're formulating growth, and these things just bring about a certain kind of happiness. Majority of men, I'm finding, they are not, from listening to everyone, they're not so happy to ask, what is the formula you're using? How can I get there too? So tell me, because you're on this fantastic journey of growth yourself and everyone can see it. It's definitely reflecting in.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's been a pleasure to watch it, frankly speaking. Persistence, diligence, resilience, growth, conversations. These things don't just happen overnight. It's systems, processes, and a almost, how do I say it, like an inner determination to just make it happen no matter what. It's like, I like to call it your inner ninja. It's just coming out. So kudos to you, Robert. I think whatever you're doing, you're being an inspiration, and you're definitely inspiring me to do a bit more sit-ups and push-ups. But why have you had men come to you and say, Robert, how do I do this? How do I get myself there?
Okay. And forgive me that I keep going back to culture, but it seems as if we've created a society or a culture where things are hard to replicate. So a blueprint is kind of hard to get done. For me personally, it took tragedy. It took the death of my father in 2015 and the whole situation with my daughter and her mother and that whole fiasco that made me start to pursue life differently. My father in particular, because I know he wanted to see me a certain way, and I tried to, inculcate his teachings into this, into that, whatever. But a couple of things. To be fair, it takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. And I think sometimes we're afraid to make the mistakes. In terms of people now coming up to me and asking me, how I do it or whatever, I get that, but I don't get it from the space of, yes, Robert, tell me how I could make a little change. What kind of books do I need to read? It's more from a conversational perspective. Because like I tell you, one of the problems with knowledge, if there is a problem with knowledge, is that it forces change. All right? Because a lot could be done when you're ignorant. When you have the knowledge, you can no longer act a certain way. And our culture, it's very difficult for people to change. So in passing, I may get a question or so, but to actually go down, Malcolm X had this great reasoning that he always went back to. He said, he would go to the mosque or whatever, and he would, give his piece, how Plymouth Rock landed on us, sir. That we're in dire need, and everybody go, yeah, yeah. The minute he asks, are you ready to do something about it? Silence.
Yeah.
So everyone is always willing to accept that, yeah, this is a little flawed, or yeah, I probably could do better. But the moment to take that step over, it's so scary, I guess, for most people that, yeah, that's a problem.
But as a society, we're watching our young men suffer. They're landing in jail. They're finding it harder to get jobs because they're not going to school. So how long do we continue the cycle of just watching it happen and watching it get worse? And then, social conditions play such a heavy part in how someone feels. When you're living beyond economic, requirements, and you're having a hard time finding a job, you don't have the education to do so, and you're beating yourself up, and then you end up doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, but it's survival. What else are you supposed to do? And then at the end of the day, you don't have a good support system. I find in today's society, we don't have a very good support system for anything. Back in the day, you can go to your local pastor, to the coroner. I had the pleasure of chatting with Edie Clark a few weeks ago, and he talked about the men being on the corner and how they really lend a helping hand to the mental state of the community. Then do we need to have more of those things? Do we need to have more open I think our culture doesn't trust very easily, because that trust factor is such a big part in terms of who do you trust. So it's, how did you do it? What motivated you to one day say, I'm going to change and I'm going to, I wouldn't say change, because you have to accept where you are. You can't erase who you were. Robert is Robert. Erasing that would be erasing Robert. So I would say, how did you adapt and understand that you wanted to go in a new direction?
Well, there should come a time in your life when, Carl Jung has a quote that he always says, where you should build up a healthy ego up to age 40, and then after age 40 you should dismantle it, right? And I think there should come a time in everyone's life when you have to dismantle it. The ego is valuable, don't get me wrong, but it could only get you so far, right? And there comes a time when you kind of have to separate yourself from that ego. And it's a difficult transition, but it's a necessary transition if you want to get to the other place. Now, the problem is, do we really want to, as a culture, get to the other side? It's like, okay, you look at bribery, something in our culture that is normal. You got to go engage in, no disrespect. I'm just speaking from a reference perspective. So anyone who's watching this video, I'm not pointing fingers at any particular individual. Please do not take it personal. But we have a bribery culture where, you give a little thing to this man to do that and whatever. Now, there are rules in place that don't allow for that. That's kind of a subculture. But every single time, if you notice that there's an ironclad kind of situation where this cannot happen and be whatever, everybody kind of goes, they kind of watch it side eye, like, like, really, give it a little space there, a little gray area that we could function in. So the idea of being rigorous, of being steadfast, is not something that is preached in our culture. We always try to leave that little gray area there, in case somebody get out of line, they could have a little leeway. And I think that works negatively, especially as you get older, because the window to do wrong, you need to start to close it as you get older, especially as you get older, because it's more detrimental to you as you get older. When you're younger, you could probably recover a little better, but as you get older, it gets worse. So especially with the men now, because the thing about it is that men's mistakes are far more severe in terms of the punishment than the women's mistake. This is not to say that it's better or worse, or the women are make more. This is not about who makes more. It's who suffers more. And the men suffer a lot more because of the societal, a woman could move in with her mother, a man moving with his mother, he's a bum. It has a lot of negative connotations, especially with a man trying to rebuild. Whereas a woman, it's kind of easier for her to do that.
I think that I understand what you're saying, but oftentimes when a woman moves in with her mom, there is a change affected that happens. There is a drastic change affected happen. I think from what you're saying, if a man moves in with his mom, then is there a change, or is this a continuation of the same? Because if the reason you're ending up with your mom in the first place is because of something that happens, then if you're going to continue doing the same thing, then you're really not doing society much. Hence, the burden is on you. I think that men face a lot. I mean, they are still responsible for carrying the burden of so much on their shoulders. And, in today's world, nothing is, cheap. It's hard. And so in terms of if you have a partner, then I don't think the ownership should be on the man just carrying the burden. It should be equal. But oftentimes still we find that the men feel that they're carrying more than the norm. But if we keep ignoring these concerns, then we have more men having heart disease and sleep disorders and turning to substance abuse, and we're losing our men, and we love our men. We want our men back. So back.
I mean, I was just listening on my drive home. I was listening to a court case where a woman is taking her child's father to child support court for more money. She's insisting that he's making more now, and she requires more of him. Okay? So the judge is there, and the judge letting her know that I hear you, but you have to produce the documents that says he's making more. I am going off of what he's saying. He's saying he make this amount, and I'm going to raise it, but I can't raise it to the figure that you're talking about because you don't have any evidence of this figure. I've listened to countless court cases on this journey, marriage cases, maternity cases, and so on and so on. And the one thing that is recurring is the system have no sympathy for the man. There is zero sympathy from the system for the man. That's why I made the mention of the man's mistakes and how he pays for it differently and more severe. So, for example, let's say child support causes you not to be able to afford a rent. We spoke about economics, so rent is a big deal. Now, child support has caused you not to be able to afford a rent, so you have to move back into mommy's basement, or mommy never had a house, so you're on mommy's couch. All right? But your child is a top priority, so you're making sure you do that. Now, you have to deal with the fact that you're on your mother's couch, which means that society sees you as a bum. You know what I mean? That's the perception, because you are not a man, because you're living by your mother at this old age. Society doesn't care that there's a story behind it, that you're on child support, that it's kind of unjust, whatever. The society doesn't care about the story that comes behind it. You have to show up as a man all the time. Whereas a woman now, for example, might be going through her struggles. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here. Any woman that's watching this, please understand. I'm not saying that you don't struggle. But the way society looks at her is not the same, even if she's in similar circumstances. So we as men, we're up against a perception that how man should be, that was set from before we were born. And if we don't fall into that perception, then we're the problem. It doesn't matter if you can't at the moment. It doesn't matter if life has put you in a different direction at the moment. It does not matter. This is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be the protector, the provider. You're supposed to have a car. You're supposed to pay for the day. These are things that are set in stone in our culture. So when a man is engaging in anything, he's engaging, having to have those other prerequisites. And if he doesn't have it, if he doesn't have all the answers, you mentioned earlier, for example, a man is getting married, or wife is pregnant, and he's depressed when, things are going good, things are good, but he's still supposed to have all the answers. He's still supposed to have enough money now for when the child is 20. And the child is not even born yet. He's supposed to have all the answers, because you know what? Any type of failure to do certain things, it's totally on him. Society is not going to put it any different. It's going to be totally on him. So when you're walking around with that level of responsibility as a man, yeah, you tend to break. It really does come at you sideways sometimes. And the one of the problem is because even me, when you develop coping mechanisms like me, being stoic, it's just Tuesday, tomorrow is another day, and doing all these things, and you're not crying. Old people used to say, only the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you're not crying, worse yet, you're cast off, because everybody thinks everything is good with you. So what do? They put some more bricks in your wheelbarrow for you to carry. You know what I mean? It's not even like, oh, he's carrying this load so well. Let him carry it so wonderful. Hey, man, congratulations. I see you carrying that load well. No, it's, you got any more brick? Bring 2 more brick. That's how you're dealt with as a man in this culture. So the hardship starts from the perception. And then, of course, when you are not able to meet those perceptions, for whatever reason, you know what I mean? You're punished for it. And it really does get to you. It really does get to you, especially if you are taught, like the legal system, for example, you were taught it's fair. It may not always be right, but at least it's fair. It's going to hear your side, it's going to hear her side, it's going to make a decision. And then you engage in that, and you realize, oh, shucks, this is not fair. You thought your brothers and your cousins and the other men around you were going to be fair. But then you engage with them, you let them know, hey, man, I'm going through a little rough time, and I know I just need some strength or whatever. And then they help you if they can, or if they choose to. But then it's help from a space of, let me take one notch off your manhood, because as a man, you shouldn't ask for help. So it's almost like you get what you wanted for the moment, but it puts you in a deficit within the friendship. So most men just decide, you know what, I'm not gonna ask for help. I don't want to have to deal with what comes after you help me. You know that type of behavior. So I just
Right.
prefer not to ask, because I know that when you help me now, or when I come and spend a couple of days on your couch or whatever as a brethren, I would hear about this for the rest of my life, because you can tell John, you can tell Tom, you can tell Susie, you can tell Patsy, and I just let me sleep on the road. At least the road won't tell me nothing after now. That kind of behavior, and
Right.
that is very real.
Hmm. Well, that's coming back to trust though, because so is it that as a society we're no longer there, or brothers keepers in some form? I mean, we are aware that the there is not enough help out there in being able to recognize when people are going through mental health, men are going through mental health issues. I don't think that our systems are set up to recognize when someone's in a mental crisis. They're not able to recognize it. And our village is not equipped to recognize it either. And that's the unfortunate part of things. But the fact is that we're going to continue to have it spiral downwards if we don't start to do something about it. I think that if we are moving into our mother's basement, then they should be some sort of actual conversation with oneself that says that, Muslim Bilal has a saying that many times those who cry alone are the strongest in the crowd. So
Mhm.
that comes back to what you're saying before, that you can take on more stones. But when do you yourself get strong enough, which we can't really often do on our own without some support system that says, you know what, no, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it anymore. When do I start to speak? Like you talked about the man engaged or having a baby and he's struggling. Well, I think, a man's cry is not heard because he cannot cry, if that makes sense. He cannot
I
show
understand what you do.
vulnerability. He can't say to someone, this is all the money I have, how can we work? For me as a woman, I'd much more prefer that someone tells me, I've got $100 to spend, we have to get married. How do we make this $100 work? Or how can I make you happy with what I have? How can we make ourselves happy together with what I have? So is it that we're just not creating an atmosphere of braveness or security, I should probably say would be the best word, where a man can feel safe enough to say, this is where I'm at. Do you accept me? Do you take me as I am? And will you be there for my growth? Like, so we can grow together. Because it saddens me to see or even hear that, I'm aware of it. We know there's perception out there, and a man's role is supposed to be stay calm, you got this, pull up your bootstraps, we're gonna be good, don't worry about it. I'm gonna lend you this money, but then I'll go tell the whole town that I lent you the money. So really it's just the trust and security. So what can we do to create that trust and security in our society today?
Okay. How many friends do you have on Facebook? You
I think
personally?
like 900.
900?
Yeah.
All right. So
I
900.
don't
Let's
care
say let's say
like the
400 of
numbers.
those 400 of those are women,
Yeah.
right? This month is mental health month. Men's health month. How many of those women, forget whether they're married or not, because they are fathers, uncle, cousins, brother, they have men somewhere in their lives. How many of them posted anything concerning men's health month? Anything, just a little acknowledgement.
I listen. I'm not going to put the ownership on them. I'm going to put the
No, I'm
ownership
not asking. No, no,
on
I'm not asking. But I'm
like how
asking.
many men did it? How many men
No,
posted
no.
about
Hold
men?
on, hold on, hold on. Did they do it? Yes or no? None of them, right?
We
I'm trying to
as
make a
human
point.
beings,
I'm not trying to vilify. I'm not trying to
of
vilify.
two groups of human beings
No, I'm not trying to
on my
vilify. No, the
all of
reason why I'm
them.
saying that. No, the reason why I'm saying that is not to vilify anyone. is to show you that every day you have a choice. Okay? Everyone have a choice. Every day they have a choice. Now, when we speak of solutions for situations like this, people have to learn to choose differently. Now, there's so much stuff that you could post, repost, retweet, tweet business on the social. And again, everyone who's watching this video, I don't pay a bill. I can't tell you what to search online or whatever. God bless you. I'm just trying to show you, or the point I'm trying to make is that men's mental health, you choose not to share it, which is fine. But then you can still turn around after you choose to go in a different direction to ask the question, what is bothering men? When you had a choice, when you could have given men a little prop, just a little, so tad, a little big up, and you refuse to do it. And then you still want to know what's bothering men. Now, if you give them a big up, and you're always giving them a big up, and there is something to ask, there is a question, you know, could ask the question because you put a little skin in the game. But you want to sit, you don't want to do anything, you don't want to engage, you don't want to get active, but then you still expect the problem to solve itself. I'm not saying men don't have problems. I'm not saying men in our culture don't have faults. Trust me, we have a ton of things to work out. But I'm saying that you see what happens when we go to the criminal court system. When we go to the legal system, you see what happens. You see what happens when a man is going through what he's going through. You see what happens when a boy is raised primarily by his mother. You see that he's 97% chance of failing at life. All of these statistics are out there, and you choose not to get involved. Again, it's fine if you choose to sit on the sideline, but you don't get to sit on the sideline and then expect the problem to be solved automatically. Get involved. If there's a man around you and you could compliment him in whatever way, because try to compliment him. Encouragement sweeten labor. Look at Father's Day coming up. Father's Day is coming up. Are there bad fathers out there? There's tons of them. I know some of them. Okay? Don't do them nothing for them. Don't give them anything. Give the good fathers, and just maybe that bad father is going to look at that good father and say, oh, shucks, right? Look at what he got for being a good father. I too want some of that niceness. So I will fall in line with that system that would allow for him to get the niceness. But you know what we do? We big up the people who have low integrity, the men who have 300 baby mothers. All of these people we follow. And the people who are actually trying to do good, put them by the wayside. Just like I talk about with a wheelbarrow. It's not about the guy who's pushing an empty wheelbarrow. It's the guy who's pushing a full wheelbarrow with a smile on his face that we choose to put more stones on that wheelbarrow. So until we start to address that, because we have the stones in our hand. So we could actually make a decision on where we put in the stones. And we still choose to put it on the man who's smiling because he has something to smile about, even though he's going through this punishment. We prefer to put it there. When the guy who is frowning and have an empty wheelbarrow and being stupid, quite frankly, we choose not to engage with him. And that has to change. And when that change, then the change is going to come. Because like I said, when you set the way where you set it up, like CXC, you do your SBA and you write your subjects and you get your one. Right now, the people who are getting ones are the people who don't contribute much to society in a positive way. And we need to take the ones off of them and put the ones on where it's deserved. Where the people who have the integrity, who are making the sacrifices, we need to do that more. And so just like this month is dedicated to men's health. Yes, men have problems. Yes, men do bad things. Yes, a man probably did one of my audience a bad thing just now. Fair enough, I give you that. But you know what? Here is a moment when we could stop what we're doing and say, hey, thanks for trying. Thanks for trying. And just maybe he will hold himself at a higher level. And next year around this time, you will see a changed individual. We've already done it the bad way. And like you said, the statistics show what's happening when we do it this way. So maybe just let me try a little sugar. We give enough salt. Let me try some sugar. Just a little bit. Sprinkle with a little sugar.
Well,
Go ahead.
unfortunately, as you know in life, you cannot control what anyone else do apart from what you yourself can do with the environment in which you act. You can't hold anybody else accountable, but you have to recognize that addressing your mental health as men is actually going to benefit you at the end of the day. And you cannot keep keeping things internalized. You can't keep waiting for anybody to tell you. So I think that in a way to support anyone going through mental health issues is to create safe environments so they can actually talk about these issues and how they're struggling with them and what it is they're wanting out of it and how they can protect themselves, because before you know it, you're going to start having chronic stress, you're going to start having anxiety, you're not going to want to be around people. And some men, really, when you think about a lot of men, they go to work, they come home, and they putter around the house. Not at all like us girls. We actually take time out to go out with our friends. We chitter chatter about boys and girls and all good things in fashion and what's going on in life. But men don't often take the time out for that. They don't take time out to cultivate really good friendships, ones that's going to help them grow. It's not like, I'm not talking about the same thing as like going to the bar and having a couple of beers. I'm talking about really just having really good conversations about what they're facing. And it's showing up more and more too that people smile and you put on the facade, but then behind the scenes, the struggle is real. So I think that in order to make the change has to come from within. We can support, we can talk to everyone else and bring awareness in terms of you've got to also, pull up your boots alongside of your brothers and husbands and fathers and sons, because we want to find, we want to find these leaders in our society. We want men to be happy and healthy. We need them, and we need more and more of them around that can be lending a hand to the next generation. It's the kindest thing you can do for yourself is recognize what you can do for someone else.
Okay, so here's a couple of things. First question, is there a penalty for paternity fraud?
This is Men's Mental Health Month.
No, please answer the question. Is there a penalty for paternity fraud that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good. So paternity fraud is committed on men and the system does nothing. Okay? Now, you started by saying, how do we create a safe space for men so that men could hear the issues, hear whatever, get it out, get whatever is inside out, whatever is bothering them out. And hopefully when they get it out, we could move from there and get to a point. Okay. The problem as it is exists right now, it is not from men not speaking up, unfortunately. It is the pushback that men get for speaking up. That's the problem. So I agree with you that you cannot control responses. You can't control what anybody do except yourself. But it's the problem we're having now is not whether or not men's issues aren't recognized in our culture, in our society. The problem is they're recognized, but they're not being dealt with in no way, shape, or form by said society. And it makes no sense for me, for example, to go to my brethren them and sit down and have a beer and be all, kumbaya and get ourselves, however, express ourselves, whatever fears, anxieties, whatever. And then I got to come home and I got to push my toe in the door to check the temperature before I come in, because home is not a safe space. So yes, I don't have no control of what my partner at home is going to do. But if my partner at home is armed with this knowledge right now, today, and is not willing to accept that, oh shucks, this is another human being. This is somebody who probably, let's just say they have the same anxieties as me. And they have the same fears as me, and they're worried about the children like me, and they're worried about tomorrow like me, and the job, and if they're going to work tomorrow or whatever, then I should, if I know that these things bothering me, and I know Robert is going through the same things, but yet I choose to just turn it into a me thing, then we still back to square one again. And again, it's not regulating how somebody else thinks. It's just the word empathy. It's just having that empathy, knowing that I'm scared about my job. You sell homes. There's things that are going to happen with selling a home. Tomorrow the client said he's going to be there, but did you stage the house right? Did you whatever? Okay. So now you have a cousin or a friend of yours or a brethren who is he also is in the same business. Why would you not believe that he's also going home at 7 o'clock in the night thinking, did we put that chandelier right? Did we leave on the light? Like, he would have the same thoughts. He will have the same anxieties. He will be worried if the buyer is going to actually show up. Like, the idea, the way the world is right now, we're stuck on this me-ness. So I would go as far as to say, I understand that the talk keep going out, like, men, y'all have to express yourself. And yes, there is something there. There is something there. There's something to be said about us as men expressing ourselves and let our feelings be known. But there's also something that's beating us back. So as I was saying, we heard what men are saying, especially now that men have been given a platform in the manosphere, red pill, whatever you want to call it, where they're literally showing you. We literally go into the courtrooms and it's documented. DNA testing, for instance, paternity tests. In Jamaica, it's well documented that I think all the cases went up. There's a 30% case of fraud. All these things are well documented now. So the men are having a voice. The problem is the pushback is so great that it doesn't even make no difference. It does not make a difference in the understanding of life now that the men are having a voice. Now, granted, the culture of itself has been so twisted over the last 100 years of our freedom that things are kind of harder in certain areas to grasp. I give you that. But we have to make an effort. We have to make an effort to accept men in a different light than what we're doing. And it requires work. But like I said before, if we celebrate the good ones and we don't celebrate the bad ones may have a change of heart and get so lonely over that side that you can want come and chill on this and other side. And then on the other side, we as men also have to hold each other accountable. That I would give you. Because we also have to let you know, say, hey, buddy, you can't be on this side if you're engaging in that. Hey, buddy, you can't be on this side if you're not going to be trustworthy, if you're not going to, be your brother's keeper, you can't be on this side. So we have some work to do. I give you that. Go ahead. Next question.
Well, I've listened to everything you have to say, and masculinity is such that it comes back to the same thing, though. No matter what you're facing, whether it be paternity or going to your mother's basement, and recognizing, though, part of growth is understanding where you're at and where you're starting from. If we're going to be working together to save more men from doing harm to themselves, because depression, as we all know, is one of the worldwide disabilities now. It's a cause of disability around the world. So recognizing the fact that, as you said, everything else is working against them, then we have to start working for them. And we have to change the narrative. No matter what's happening yesterday, today's a new day. We get a chance to speak to someone and help them make the change. I mean, therapy actually benefits men in an amazing way. And I understand that economically, then that might not be a solution for some. But therapy doesn't always necessarily have to happen in a professional stance. Therapy can also happen in churches and on the in the neighborhood corner. So I hear everything you said, and given in terms of a woman tricking a man into thinking it's hers or not, that's something that's cannot necessarily be controlled, because you do have to be mindful of who you choose as your partner in life. It's an important thing. And back to when you say you have to feel the temperature when you put your toes in the front door, well, there was probably a time you're putting your toes in the front door and temperature was nice and sweet. So what changed? It takes two to tango that way. So I can't go down that path. But what I can go down the path of, how do we truly help someone? How do we help them to understand their importance, why we need them, why we need them to be healthy, why we need them to know that we are truly there. And I'm a woman and I care and I know what I do for the men in my surroundings in every way. Sometimes you have to stop, like you said, I work a lot with men. Sometimes I have to stop my busyness and say, hey, how is life? What's going on? And people can feel your energy, if you're being trustworthy or not, if you're being meaningful or not. So as human beings, we need to create that where we create safe environments for each other. And it's just sad because more and more men not being able to be, because masculinity is what they themselves say they face the most. They don't say they face femininity, they face masculinity. The stigma that comes with them just being what they were meant to be, a man. And we want them to be strong and healthy. So it's
Okay.
just, yeah.
All right. So what percentage of our men now are being raised by single mothers?
I have no idea. I'm sure it's a lot.
So let's just call it a lot. You believe that a woman is able to equip a man to be a man?
Robert, a woman is only going to try her best.
I never said she wouldn't try her best. I'm asking if you believe she's equipped to turn her son into a man.
I think that in the households that I know, where it's single women raising sons, I happen to have two really close friends that have two sons each that are now in their 20s. And those women have done everything they could. And the greatest pride is when you see the boys being successful. So do I believe it can happen? Yes. Do I believe there's sacrifices that those women made to not have other relationships? I mean, I've watched these girls go without having anybody publicly in their home so that they can maintain an atmosphere for their sons. When they didn't know how to handle it, they brought it to us other mothers, myself included. This is what I'm facing. This is what he's doing.
Overall, and kudos to those two women. God bless them.
There's more than those two women.
Overall, do you think a woman is equipped to raise a boy into a man?
I don't.
By herself.
I cannot say that. I think at some point that there are other factors that come to play from your little village, whatever the village is.
No, but it's not about the village. The reason why I'm having this type of conversation is because I want to illustrate to you and the audience that when you spit out these statistics about depression or whatever, and you go to therapy, one of the first things they try to get is the background. A lot of these young men are coming from single mother homes. Okay? A lot of these young men who are in the destructive part of life are coming from single mother homes. Now, this is not to say that all of their fathers were great fathers and, the mother just put them out or whatever. But it's the fact remains that you're coming from single mother's home. That's one. Secondly, now, we've created a society that literally punishes the man for trying. It's easier for you not to try. Not just from a judicial perspective, but just from a common folk perspective, because even the common folk will prefer to punish you instead of exalt you for trying. All right? That is what we're seeing. Now, you're asking the question as to how do we change it? How do we move forward? We have to take responsibility. We have to do this. We have to do that. Okay, fair enough. So you have Mr. Perfect, takes responsibility, does all the things he's supposed to do, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, is not making a fool of himself, keeps going. You're asking Mr. Perfect to now continue going, waving his own banner, clapping his own self, and just plowing through. And everybody else that's running around him is getting all the water and all the praise and all the this and all of that for doing nothing. So you have to, as a society, you have to change your value system, or else nothing is going to change. Because individually, yes, one man might be strong enough to say, you know what, I don't care. I don't care what they say. I don't care how they say it. I'm going to do the right and whatever, whatever. But that's going to be one man. And you know what? He's going to do the right, and he's going to end in life being a right man and a good man, and his life is going to end there, and it will not be replicated, because the people who, even the people who are onlooking, who say, you know what, yeah, maybe I should try that. When they hear what they say about him and he's not there, when they see how they treat him for being good, they're not going to want to be good. So until you are,
want to be good. Tell me.
yeah, but even if you want, again, this is what I'm saying to you.
So what
As
has
a man,
you to want to be good? What have
yeah,
motivated
but
you to
yeah,
want
but
to be good?
I mean, you're asking too much. You're asking an
I
individual.
don't think I'm asking enough.
No, you're asking too much, because you're asking to get pray. You're asking to be raised and to work with no pay, while everybody else getting paid. That's what you're asking. You have created. We've created a
How do
value
you do it?
system.
How do you do it? How do you do it? What's your formula?
Yeah, but even if the way I do it, I don't recommend nobody else to do it,
Maybe you should.
because the way I do it, the stoic way.
Maybe
Hold
you
on.
can save a life by talking about that, because
Amina, Amina,
yeah,
Amina, I have been talking about this now for maybe 8 years on my social media platform. I've been speaking about this at length. I've been explaining it at
in
length.
your community, within the men that you're affected.
But my community, I work 16-hour days. I live by myself. I do everything for myself. My community is on Facebook for the most part, because other than that, it's me working, it's me going to gym, it's me doing all the other stuff. All right.
So
Now,
you're focused on a change. You're focused on your growth. You're working hard towards that. Then
yes, but think about for the last 5 years, 6 years, up to today, how many people have cast me aside? How many people have said, "Oh, he disrespectful"? How many people have dismissed me, dismissed my videos, dismissed my
does
time?
that hurt your feelings?
Hurt an individual. It hurts you as a person.
So then
But good. So now you're asking me now to go recruit a brother, bring him on board, mentor him. You understand me? And then let him know that when mental health day come, or Father's Day come, or this day come, or that day come, which is 1 out of 365, or 1 month out of 12 months, that you could actually get a little round of applause. You're not going to get it, but don't worry about it, because it's a life goal. And then he now has to sit there and watch the other brethren who I'm not mentoring and who I'm not guided, that is a total mess. And he gets invited to the Barbie Dead. He gets all the accolades. He gets all the reposting and retweeting or whatever. That's not fair to ask of a young man. So once again, I'm asking you, when we put this charge, when we put this charge on an individual and say, hey man, you know, you got to pull up. Fair enough. Yes, he has to pull up. You have to be different. You have to whatever. Okay, when he be different, what does he get?
You can't say it like that. That's the difference. You know, I talked about earlier, which is mental wealth, is when you know ahead of time. It's not about what you lack or what someone's not doing for you, but for us to affect a change to help men to become exactly what they're, to be able to freely share, is that recognition of accepting where you're at and understanding that if you're, sometimes to fight a war, you've got to do it by yourself. Sometimes you're not going to, you know, oftentimes we think the people that are going to be by our side actually ends up not being the people by our side. It turns out to be random strangers in their little acts that end up being the ones that are there. It could be the random person when you do decide to hand in that resume and you get that job, and that one chance, it just takes that one chance to put your life on a different avenue. Sometimes it's just a brother waking up one morning and said, I had enough of this crap. I'm just going to start something new. So you cannot look at all the different angles of things.
Yeah, but Armina, we have to live in reality, and we have to be able to accept things as they are. CXE just finished in Guyana. Kids graduating from school and so on and so on. Wonderful time. We had our time. show me where that's part of the daily news. Like, oh my God, these young people are now about to embark on a journey, whatever. The teachers are on strike in Guyana now for at least 60 days counting. Okay? The last time I checked it was 50, so it must be, my day might be a little off, but they're on strike. That's not the leading conversation. That's not what's trending in the Guyanese culture. And that is more important than what's trending right now. But we've created a culture where certain things are celebrated. A lot of people are engaged in certain type of behaviors. Oh yeah, you might say, oh yeah, you got to be individual or whatever. But when they look around, who's getting the praise? Who's getting life easier? No, but that is just
if you focus on the praise, you lose track of your inner
encouragement sweeten labor. You're not gonna work and not expect something. You're not gonna work and not expect something. When you put in the work, you expect something. It may not be money, but you expect something. It's how you're wired. But when you look around and you see the people who are getting ahead of you, are the people who are cheating, are the people who are doing things that you would not do. And then you're still asking me to hold firm. And I'm holding firm. And this is what's happening. And then when the time is come now, when you could even do it without it being a problem, which is like this month, Men's Mental Health Month. So how now we are going to turn around and say, oh, well, men, the men have to. You haven't celebrated man from January to June. You have not put one thing into saying, okay, let's celebrate them. When a man is getting money, a man is thinking about his family. When a woman is getting money, she's thinking about herself. No, that's fine. Men have accepted that for eons because we men, we take care of family. So that's part of being a man, and that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. But do not tell me now that society doesn't know that that's what men is charged to do and that's what they're doing. They're not ignorant. They know. They just choose not to deal with it. They just choose not to give you that.
It's not about they. It's about men. Because if men
have to live in society, a man don't live by himself.
Men and society pretend that the issues don't exist, and that's unhealthy in itself.
But the men have been telling you the issue exists. The court is part of society.
And face yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I've got some issues I'm dealing with. It starts with that first. We know that as human beings, we're often the hardest. Listen, no one's going out there and committing suicide because no one's not liking their stuff on Facebook. No one's going out there and committing suicide because, all my friends don't understand or give me this. They're committing suicide because there's inner, deeper things that they don't feel safe enough to be able to share, that they're struggling with, that I do not know how to cope with this, and this. That is why we owe it to them, to whoever is listening, that we actually share with them that it's okay for them to tell us.
So what you're basically saying is the 1 in 10 men who would commit suicide, let's say 1 in 100 from this particular space where they feel as if it's overwhelming, they feel as if nobody's listening to them or whatever, right? And I have no problem with accepting that statistic. I have no problem with accepting cause and effect where that is concerned. But out of that one that would take it to the extreme, those 99 men that are not doing it, that have not taken it to that extreme, you really believe the world is giving those 99 men a fair shake?
But what we're doing.
Please answer that question.
I'm going to answer the question right now for you. In order for them to have a fair shake, they got to shake themselves, because you don't want the 99 to become the 1. Because you have to understand, you have to realize that you've got to put aside the stigma and say, you know what, I've got some issues, and how do I figure it out? Men are so afraid of anything to do with their health.
So the 99, let's say 40.
Their mental health is. First of all, you're on the journey that you're on right now. But frankly speaking, if you continue to focus on some of the stuff that you're focusing on, it's going to easily pull you back to where you were. If you don't realize that you're kind of trajectorying this way, then you're going to find that it's going to be easier to be passionate about what you're passionate about. But at the same time, is it healthy for you? What feeling does it give you on the inside?
No, 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 and no. Because first of all, the journey that I'm on, okay, I'm explaining to you, being on the journey, these are the things that you have to endure. I'm not focused on the things you have to endure. I'm making it known that these are the things you have to endure.
Right.
Now, when you want to bring somebody else on this journey, or you want to give somebody else the knowledge to go on their own journey, you have to let them know that these are the things them that you have to endure. Now, are these things good things? No. You're human. You're a social animal. You want to be part of society. You want to be seen as a good person. You want all the things that comes with that. Because you know
What do you
what?
surround yourself with? So, like, let's
It
say, for
has nothing to do. It has
let's
nothing
say,
to do with whether you surround yourself with.
let's
When
use
you
an
go,
example. If you and I were to go on a date, let's say I meet you, you meet me, I'm now coming into your life, you have an interest in me. What would be some of the things that you would tell me so that I could be a good partner to you?
listen, appreciate, reciprocate.
Empathize. And as a woman, frankly speaking, I would do those things for you because
Okay,
they
and
are
I have
important for
no
you.
doubt about that. But
So,
again,
so no, but listen to what you just did. Listen to what you just did. You did it softly, you did it in the most amazing way, and you did it humbly. And how many men can do what you just did? If you just ask them, tell me what you're looking for, tell me what it is you want, and then also tell me what your dreams are, where you want to go, how are you doing? So we just did something together that is exactly what every single person should go and do with someone else that they're either partners with, now beginning to date, care for, want to see thrive. Like, we have to realize that there's benefits to this, Robert. You're a man, don't you want to
do
be
you
free?
listen?
Yeah.
Do you listen to women when they speak of what their idea of a man is?
Yes, I do. And it's,
And what do
you
they
don't
say?
know who you surround yourself with, but I can tell you
What
the
do they say? I don't matter what I surround myself with. What do the women around you say? What do they say? When they're looking for a partner, a man,
how
what
hot
do
he
they
is.
say? What is the top three
I
things?
mean,
What are the top three things they ask for?
top
Top three
three
first.
things. Top three things. How he makes her feel, how she never dreamt she could meet somebody like him, how he listens and cares and actually pays attention. And then here's the funny part, reciprocated right back tenfold. You know, I had a friend who, after a horrific experience of 12 years, said she would never date another guy again, ever. Today, 2 years later, moved in, fantastic man. It's amazing. We all supported. We love him. He is like a man's man. Man, I tell you, we never a woman when you are loved correctly, you awaken in the most dynamic ways. Robert, you cannot tell me that you have not met friends or have friends or no friends who have love. The best freedom you can give to a partner is the freedom in being their individualistic self. But then it's the safest when they can come to you and say, you know what? I really want you to do this for me. I mean, I do it in my baby voice, but it works every time. And then it's just that you have to.
And again, this is what I'm saying. This is why this conversation is so interesting. And again, I have no problem with your observation. Whatnot. That's your observation. So it's not a point of contention.
It's
But
not.
on the ground, in real life, ground business now.
Yeah.
That don't happen.
Why?
A woman,
Happen.
no, but there's a culture. There's the culture. That is
Culture. What
our
am I
culture. This is our
culture?
culture is just a set of norms. And we have to come to grips. We cannot deal with this thing in a vacuum. That's why I'm telling you. Culture is where you're seeing next to you. Where you're at, agree that probably happened. Like I said, I don't have an argument. I don't know. So these wonderful love stories that we have, that we are wrong because the fortunate or unfortunately, our jobs and our location puts us in contact with different cultures. So we're able to see and experience different cultures. But we're on Voices of Linden TV. So
Yeah.
just for the record, you give me some example of this wonderful potpourri love, dating and courting and wonderfulness that exists in our Linden. I'll wait.
Well, I can only speak of the women that and the people that I was surrounded by. And I mean, I watched my mom support my dad every way she could. Like, while still being a mother, I myself, as you know, got married super young and have like I can only say that I learned it from my mom and the women she's surrounded with, which is you lend support to your partner, regardless of if you like them or not, in the best way that you could to support their growth and enable your growth. It's an equal thing.
In our culture, one of the things that handicaps that is that we go back to what I was talking about with change and being afraid to change. You also have to remember this is a post-slavery society. We have learned to love you from right here. A mother raising her kids, for example, if you notice, I mean, okay, you might not notice this, but to the people watching, when people are complimenting your child in our culture, so for example, somebody might see my mother, so, his son is a star, he's doing well, it's always strawberry chop. When you try that with tea, it's not because she doesn't love me, but she's coming from a space where 200 years ago, she had to create that detachment because that son would have probably been sold. You understand? So
Yeah.
think about that now and bring it up to modern day marriage now. Some of the times it's not from lack of love. It's probably their dream is exactly what you spoke about just now. This wonderful bliss and whatever. But then you are also
Yeah.
dealing with individuals who are coming into it now from that understanding that if I strengthen my husband or if I strengthen my wife, I'm strengthening her away from me. We actually have those hang-ups in our culture. And this is not a point finger, who's bad, who's right, who's wrong. This is just a cultural understanding of things. You know what I mean? I come from a culture where the woman is a nurse, for example, and the man is a taxi driver or a carpenter, some blue collar situation. And for those who don't know blue collar is like trade. All right. Now, and there's contention in the home, not because the woman is promiscuous, not because the man is promiscuous, but the woman may come home and use a word that the man is not familiar with. And he somehow feel that she's being condescending in her expressing whatever it is that she's expressing to him.
Robert, that's going to the point of, see, here's the thing. I've listened to everything you said, but we are the ones, men are putting themselves in a condition that has risk factors associated that are creating the mental health issues that are happening. So, for example, I grew up in Linden. I understand what you're saying. I know that the whole idea that you cannot really attach yourself to a woman sometimes because your ancestors were faced with the fact that that woman could be taken away from you or that child could be taken away from you. But part of mental wealth is understanding that you are also creating a life. And so those people that had to suffer so much in the past, for you to have the freedom today to be smart enough to know who you're choosing as your partner. And so you're not creating these risk factors and these conditions that are doing you harm. So a lot of it, we have to take ownership for our lives. Like if we want to solve something that is taking such a toll on our society, then society is going to keep going downhill where we're not going to be able to have men and we're going to have unhappy women because the women are looking for men. So at the end of the day, I've heard everything you said, but we have to tell our men that we are there for them. We're there to support them. We have to.
Which you don't do in mass.
I can easily say
Which you don't do in mass. Which you don't do in mass. You don't do exactly what you said. Women don't do that in mass. They do not tell the men that they care for them.
Well,
they don't.
I don't want to go into this, but we do know, listen, you want to really break it down, I can break it down. I'm not afraid of this topic. At the end of the day, you attract what you're at. So you have women that are also going through the same struggles. Their self-esteem may not be the best. They may not be equipped to be able to help you in your growth, but they're gonna try with the best of what they know. And unfortunately, what some women may only know is may not be maybe their own risk factors that come with what they know. And so then the men are attracted to that. And then you create a condition that's not healthy for both. And you talked about the single mother and then the single mother, but then what happens? There's a difference between women and men. When women become nurturers, we change. All of a sudden, we find something to study, we go, we study it, we master it, and we raise our household in the best we could. The problem is we're not equipped necessarily to deal with when sons become teenagers and they want to lash out. We're not even equipped when our daughters, but that's parenting. Gosh, even forget everything we've talked about. Parenting on a whole is another crisis. It is a tough job. So add on to that dating and happiness and everything else. But back to what the main concern is, it's our men, it's you. It's you understanding that you deserve a life. You are important to us. We need you. We want you to be healthy. We don't want to see our men.
Armina.
Yes.
It's all the sentiments that you express in terms of women needing men. There's a challenge right now on TikTok. Hold on. There's a challenge right now on TikTok. You know what the challenge is on TikTok?
I don't care what the challenge is.
No. You see, listen to what I'm saying.
But I'll care for you. I'll care for you.
There's a challenge on TikTok where the women are choosing between if they would prefer to be in the forest with a man or a bear. A grizzly bear. Guess what they overwhelmingly choose? Just make a guess.
They chose the bear.
All right? On The View has 2 million. I'm not done. The View have 2 million viewers every day.
How does that make you feel as a man? How does that make you feel as a man?
How you think you're making me feel? Because none of that. When a woman sits down and she makes that choice and says she prefers the beer, and then Men's Health Month comes around and there is nothing from no one. So even if we want to say that woman or the women on the TikTok who choose beer, listen, I'm answering the question. That woman those women on the TikTok, let's say that they're aliens from outer space. They don't count. All right. Men's Health Month, Father's Day. The difference between Mother's Day spending and Father's Day spending, 70% difference. Men's Health Month, nothing. Okay? So the women like yourself, wonderful women, good women, who are not on the TikTok choosing beer. Those are weirdos, no problem. In the mainstream, Men's Health Month, you're still not getting it. You're still getting the beer part of it because they're not even giving you any credence. You understand? So what I'm expressing to you now is that life doesn't exist in a vacuum. And yes, there are men who may have my inner strength that they're able to withstand a little more than the other brethren and the other brethren and the other brethren. There may be more men like me, no problem. I accept that as well. But the truth of the matter is, it does not change that you live in a society. And if every single turn in this society, as a man, you're being kicked down and regulated, then don't expect the optimum. And that is the problem. So I get when you say every individual have to take responsibility and look at yourself in the mirror or whatever. I get that. And I can't dispute that because that is true. But we don't exist in a vacuum. We do not exist in a vacuum. And it speaks volumes to the men who are trying, who are looking themselves in the mirror every morning and saying, why, not today. Gotta make it. It speaks volume to those men when Father's Day come and there's a 70% drop. It speaks volumes to those men when Men Mental Health Month come and there's nothing there. Even from the organizations that they would support from time to time. Even from the women that they would support from time to time. To march with them when there's ovarian cancer. To march with them when there are women issues. To stand with them when it's their issues. To look at those same women, organizations that exist, that cannot look at the man just for once and say, hey, encouragement sweeten labor. So I understand that, yes, there is an individual side to this conversation. And I'm humble. I told you this before and I'll tell you it publicly. I'm humble for all the times that you would text me and say, hey, man, doing a good job. I'm humble for that. You know what I mean? But I have 2,000 people on my Facebook. You know what I mean? 2,000 people on my Facebook. I have more conversations on my Facebook concerning frivolous things than concerning these things. And I'm okay to live with that. I'm okay to live with standing up and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But we have to find a way where these things aren't ostracized. And again, like I said, we don't exist in a vacuum. You know what I mean? And if I have to pull my own weight and take responsibility for my own behavior and however, whatever, the rest of society has to pull its own weight. And if they realize that the behavior, the overall behavior of our culture is going down into a dead-end road, then everybody got to get some sense. Not just the individual who's trying to go on a personal growth journey. Everybody got to get some sense. And that is what's not happening.
Well, one of the great things about what you just did, is that maybe from today on, everybody will understand what men's health is, recognize it within themselves, recognize it within their partners, recognize it within their male associates, and maybe we'll see more, encouragement coming, more posts about men's mental health and what it means. And the end of the day, that, it's the little things that count, and it's the understanding what the meaning is. But something you said just now brings back the point of men's mental health and safeness, if you're a place to talk about it. People would much more to choose to talk about all the frivolous, non-relevant issues than to ever talk about what's really going on, and in a deeper manner than just surface. Because the problem is, Robert, is there's a lot of men and women going through mental health issues. And sometimes they just don't want to talk about those things because it triggers old traumas or whatever reason. Not everybody's capable of being able to deal with those things. So hence it's easier to talk about who Jack slept with last night versus what is truly going on with Jack. Why hasn't he come out of his house? Why hasn't the garbage been emptied? Why has he been putting a lot of alcohol bottles in the garbage bin? What's going on? I see the ambulance there. Is it chest pain, health pain, chronic disease, whatever? Unfortunately, we have to be nosy about the right things versus being nosy about the not so right things. So coming back to it is understanding that we just can't keep brushing it under the rug and expect that it's going to go away. Not everybody's strong, and healing is not just to fix the trials and traumas and everything in the past. Healing is so that you can actually start living and embracing the joy and happiness that's coming to you that you deserve. And Robert, I'm going to tell this to you. You deserve love. You deserve happiness. You deserve everything good that makes a human being a human. And I'm happy to tell you that publicly. I would probably tell you that in your inbox too, but it's the truth. Every single person deserves that, and there's no buts to it. Actually, you deserve it. We all deserve it. Today I met with a woman that has been through some horrific things in her life, along with her 3 daughters. And yes, there is a man behind the scene, but I can tell you from the conversation today, there was no cruelty to do with. There was care, but sometimes we have to realize that the position we're in is because of the risk factors and conditions that we put ourselves in. So my heart goes out to people that are hurting, but you have to accept and take responsibility, and then also surround yourself with the best of the best. There's not a lot of people that I could easily call and talk about my, my girl growth, as I like to call it, where I'm going, what I want, what condition I want, what my happiness truly is. I do have 15 women though that I can call in a heartbeat. I have a mom, I have a sister, I have, I can easily say I've got a few men I can go and talk to about that too. But I find like I have a sisterhood that I surround myself with that I can go in a heartbeat. And one of the things I will say, we're often bad liars because we can look ourselves in the mirror. We can talk about how handsome we look, like you like to talk about your Gucci shirt and all the things you wear. And you could talk about, oh yeah, that nice cologne and you look good. But the bad liar is on the inside when you don't turn back and say, hey, are you really good? So happy we're having a discussion about this topic. But what if you can say anything to men out there, Robert, what would you say to them?
Okay. So I hear this last question kind of, if you could just the thing about it is that
Good. Good.
the thing about it is that as men, empathy. Understand that you're not alone in this fight. Um, it's hard, I know, to be vocal sometimes. I read a quote a couple of days ago. I'm always having these quotes, but anyway, I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said, if you're silent, they would hurt you and say that you were happy to be hurt, or something of that nature. Now, the reason why I'm using it in this regard is because as men, all right, let me try to do it a little different. There's more to life, men, than money and sex. Try your best to find a higher purpose than those two and live within your purpose. Viktor Frankl, which is a famous author, he was also in the Nazi death camps, had this reasoning where he says, a man who finds a purpose can endure anything. And I truly believe that to be true. So as much as I'm ranting and raving about men's mental health and Father's Day is coming up and whatever, you find your purpose, you could enjoy the Father's Day and no gift. You can enjoy the mental health situation and nobody giving you a thumbs up and whatever. You find your purpose, you could endure the non-response to the world that they treat you. Find your purpose. That's better.
Thank you for that. And in conclusion, of course, I would like to add that eradicating the disparities in mental health treatment and outcomes requires changes for how communities are viewed. Making services more humane at interpersonal level is deeply important, and everyone values, because all of us value positive relationships. So let's start creating some positive relationships that are filled with good emotional and social functioning. And people who have been excluded or marginalized and have suffered emotional distress are in greater need of positive relationships more than any. So let's start creating as much of this as we could within what we can in our own control, while also taking consideration our own mental health. Because one thing that I do want to make sure I leave you with, if you have the ability to seek therapy, please do. It actually benefits you greatly. If you have the ability to recognize the distresses that are within your household or your surroundings, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, a lot of TV time, a lot of video gaming time, anger outbursts, things like that, quietness, not wanting to talk about things, just isolation. Recognize that these things are important. Most important, what Robert said today, is have some empathy for your fellow human being, for your fellow men, for men. And it is Men's Mental Health Month, and I get the pleasure of joining us today. Robert's here and Andrew's behind the scenes, and you are both men and you're both important to society. No matter any way we look at it, you are individuals that add a lot of value just by being who you are, and we're very grateful for you. And to all the men out there, and Father's Day coming up, If you are a father, happy Father's Day. If you're a young man, you're important. Your existence matters, no matter who you are. If you're retired, elderly, and uncle, whoever you are, if you're a man and you're facing anything, know that you are important and we do care. And to the women out there, we are sisters, we are mothers, we are females at all different walks of life. Please listen to your men. If you truly care about them, empathize with them, tell them how important they are, but most of all, let your actions reflect your words. Love you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet, Army. On behalf of all men, thank you.
Welcome.
Blessings.